This flashback episode of the Handcuffs and Sawdust podcast first aired April 28th, 2021, and is brought to you by surfprepsanding.com. For all your sanding needs, check out surfprepsanding.com. Hello. How's it going?
Hey, Mike.
That didn't
What's
take
up?
long. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
It's just Saturday, man. Well, Thursday
It
for
is your
everyone
Saturday.
else.
Yeah, normal people, it's a Thursday.
Yeah.
In Copland, it's a Saturday.
I don't know what year it is.
Yeah, it's 2021.
Oh,
And
crap.
it's my Sunday. So that's how this works in law enforcement, right? Your Saturday, my Sunday, it's actually Thursday. What the fuck's going on? But what is going on is episode 2 of the Handcuffs and Sawdust podcast. So got some good feedback from the first one. How about you?
Yeah, everyone seemed to really like it. I apologize for the crappy audio. I moved a little bit closer to my internet source. So now hopefully I sound a little bit better.
Man, you sound like you're sitting in a chair right next to me wearing a mask.
Well,
You're clearer than wearing a mask, but it sounds like you're in the same room as me.
say if I was wearing a mask, it'd sound a little bit more like this,
Right.
and nobody can hear me.
Yeah. How does Deadpool sound so clear?
You know, it's almost like they do it on a computer.
Right. Like he's not actually even talking while he's killing people.
Yeah,
Oh, well.
weird.
So, how was your week?
It's long, man. So with and I know we're going to get into the verdict in this little court case.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know if anybody's heard about it, but there
No.
was a rather pivotal court case in Minnesota that reached a verdict. So I got a little bit of overtime that day.
Giddy up. See, we're already benefiting from it.
I know. I'm going to buy some stuff.
I don't want to benefit from someone's misery, but overtime? Yeah, giddy up. What can I buy?
Sign me up. I just got a pay bump.
Nice. So we've had a bunch of different things happening this week. And for our week, we're recording this on Thursday, and we just recorded the last one on Saturday. So it's only been a short week for us. But for the listeners to know, what we'd actually like to do is pick one day to have these things drop. And since the first one dropped on a Wednesday, I guess we're going to keep up with the Wednesday dropping schedule. How's that sound, Brandon?
It sounds good to me.
All right, cool. So within the last 5 days, just a few things have occurred in the world of law enforcement. One of them was this trial going on in Minneapolis that Brandon talked about, the Derek Chauvin trial. And the second one, as of yesterday, there's something else happening today, but we're not going to touch on that, was the Columbus, Ohio police shooting. So those are the two main topics we're going to talk about before we get into the woodworking segment. So let's go. What say you, Brandon, about this found guilty on 3 counts for Derek Chauvin? First one, guilty of second-degree murder. Second one, guilty of third-degree murder. And the third one, guilty of manslaughter.
So I don't think there's a person around that would say that what Derek Chauvin did was okay. I think it's an egregious use of force or excessive use of force. However, you and I dealing in elements of a crime and understanding that if you don't fulfill those elements, you don't have that crime. I thought that when the DA filed the murder 2 charge, I thought he was reaching. I thought he was caving in to the mob mentality that, quite honestly, I don't blame him. If people were burning down my city, I would probably do just about anything I could to make that stop. And if it meant overcharging and seeing if I could maybe, knowing that I would maybe lose that charge, like I would be okay with that. Because if you look at murder 2, if you look at the statute, it's causing a death while in the commission of a felony. And you read off the charges. He was charged with murder 2, murder 3, and manslaughter. That's it. There's no other additional felony that he was charged with. So if he unintentionally killed somebody during the commission of a felony, where's that felony charge? I think the jury. I don't really know. I'd be really interested to hear their reasoning for it. I have some personal opinions.
Well, that's why we're here.
Yeah, and I'm going to get into that with an elected official, Maxine Waters, who is known for calling for violence, called for BLM protesters to be more confrontational with police, and did that before the jury was even deliberating. And this was a jury that wasn't sequestered, which I think was a huge mistake.
So wait, when the president of the United States says,
we'll get to good old Joe.
They're not going to hear me because they're sequestered, could he be lying? Oh, well, we'll get back to that.
So lying, I don't think he was lying. I think
uninformed.
I think he genuinely did not know. However, when was the last time a sitting U.S. president weighed in on a jury trial that was still actively being litigated? Because I can't think of one. Nobody.
I'll say never.
Yeah, I can't think of it ever happening. And my personal feelings of Joe Biden's politics aside, I heard him say all that and just like my jaw hit the floor. I'm like, what are you doing? I don't think you're intentionally trying to tamper with a jury, but just using language that could be interpreted as such is so far into left field and not something that should be tolerated. And then Maxine Waters, she is trying to incite a riot. I mean, take whatever you feel about Donald Trump aside of this. If you look at just the words used on January 6th and you compare it to the words used by Maxine Waters the other day, what she said directly was calling for violence. And just out of curiosity, Mike, do you know the FBI definition of terrorism?
I don't.
So it reads a lot like robbery. So using force or the threat of force to bring about political or social change. Not going to weigh in on what that was. That is information that is out there, readily available on the FBI website.
My whole thoughts on BLM is they're a homegrown terrorist organization. They are. They incite violence.
If you look at the FBI definition, I would say that you're probably right. If we look at letter of the law.
Right. No one wants to hear that. Or no one on the left.
No, and don't get it confused. So I think there's two different parts of this. I'll phrase it this way. Let me ask you a question, Mike. Do you believe in the phrase, in these words, Black Lives Matter? Do you believe that? Okay.
Of course.
What do you think about the organization? Because I think there's two different things. There's the movement, Black Lives Matter, which I think had a righteous, movement, had a terrific point, and had a moment that they could grab onto and really push for change that, quite honestly, we do need. I mean, and it doesn't just apply to law enforcement like you and I on the street. It applies to the judicial system. And it applies to city, county, state, and federal government. I thought they had that moment. And then the organization, Black Lives Matter, bastardized that movement. So
I agree.
So, and I think a lot of that is people aren't able to separate the movement from the organization. Just like people can't seem to separate people who are just Democrats and people who are anarchists or just like people can't separate Republican from right-wing extremists or white supremacists. People just cannot seem to go, well, you can identify, I mean, you can be a conservative, but that doesn't mean that you're, a white supremacist or a racist or any of these other horrible things. And just being a Democrat doesn't mean that you want, communism in America. There's two totally different parts to that. So while I think the organization Black Lives Matter is quite possibly a terrorist organization, no different than the KKK. I agree with the movement that there are some things that we really do need to look at, but I think what we're not looking at is some of these systems that are in place already. Do you know what the number one predictor of crime is? It's poverty.
Poverty, yeah.
Poverty. Anywhere you go to high crime rates, you're going to have low income. So what has government done throughout the course of, let's just go back to this from the 60s till now. They've incentivized, or just look at the pandemic. There were people quitting their jobs to take unemployment because they were going to get paid more.
Right.
So in the first year after I left the military, it was taking a long time to get hired on. And my wife and I got to the point where we were going to have to decide which bill was going to get paid. Like, were we going to buy groceries or were we going to keep the power on? So we went on government assistance. Okay, we did.
But you didn't go out and rob somebody or
no.
Steals. Go ahead. Sorry.
We filled out all the paperwork, and I took unemployment. We got food stamps. We did WIC. We did the whole 9 yards. And there is a lot of help out there, like financially, to where I understand why people will stay on it forever. Why we've incentivized living in poverty. Like, we have Section 8 housing. Like, hey, cool. We'll just give you a place to live for next to nothing. If you don't make too much, we'll give you a check for 6 months and unemployment. If you don't have a job, all you got to do is just pinky promise that you were looking for one. And then with food stamps, you want to buy a bunch of fatty, sugary food that is crap for you? Cool, on us. So we need to look at that system to maybe help get people out of poverty, or put a clock on it of nothing's going to light a fire under your ass like a deadline. If I know, hey, I've got 6 months to get a job and get on my feet, otherwise I'm going to be on the street, I guarantee you people will start pulling themselves out of poverty.
Yeah, because they'd have to. So back to the actual trial. We have a guest tonight for everyone listening. Joey Mayberry is joining us. We're having technical issues for him to actually participate vocally, but he is texting and listening. So we have a live studio guest in his own studio. So Joey says, as far as this trial goes, the scales of justice is said to be blind, but it's not in this case. This was a politically motivated trial. And I want to ask someone, so, okay, this jury wasn't sequestered. During jury selection, did they go to what is supposed to be made up of people in your own, city and everything? There's not one person in Minneapolis who hasn't been poisoned by the media in the last 11 months before this even went to trial. So their jury pool was tainted from the beginning, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, usually with big trials like this, you see them moved out of county.
But still, they could have moved it to Cook
sometimes
County,
out of state.
Or they could have went to South Dakota. Everyone knows what's going on with this trial. So
I think he would have stood a chance in South Dakota.
Possibly. I mean,
having lived in North Dakota, I think he would have stood a chance.
But you had a television in North Dakota, right?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. They might have
much all there was to do.
They might have shown this story on the news in North Dakota and South Dakota. So I think it wasn't. Now, you got to say your piece on what you believe as well as far as the charges go. Obviously, what he did is not condoned by anyone that I work with, nor myself. Obviously, with today's world of everyone having a camera, made it worse, right? Because there was a young girl that recorded this event. So what we like to do, what you and I talked about prior, is what we do in our profession every day. We see these things either in front of us, we do it ourselves, or we see others do it, and we then break everything down, and what can we learn from it? So this is a horrible case, but we do need to learn from it on the law enforcement side. And I was just wondering what you think could have been done differently in this case, because everyone that's in this field has fought with people. That's our job. We get paid to fight people. He was under arrest. He was placed in a squad. He was heard saying he couldn't breathe when he was actually in the squad car. Then they bring him out, and he struggles, and then they place him on the ground, and in a very bad spot, right? He's on the street. He's on concrete. There's a bunch of people around, which you never want people around when you're trying to make an arrest, right? Because bad things can happen. If one of them had decided to step in, there could have been all kinds of bad things happening. More than just occurred. More than one person could be dead. So as far as your expertise go and your knowledge of the field and your working knowledge, what may have you done differently?
So I think, and this has been done a lot, where we're looking at the final moment, right? We're looking at that one singular use of force.
Well, the 9 minutes.
So let's go. Yeah. So let's go all the way back. What was the original call for service? A forged, like, guy passing off a forged bill.
Right. So he had committed a crime.
Yeah, absolutely. But then we start to look at, okay, and it's something that I think, at least in California, we do pretty much on a regular basis now of, are we going to really get into a use of force over, a bad 20?
Yeah.
Now, and knowing when to walk away.
But see, that's now today. That's not what we're trained to do.
And I think that's the hard part, is going back and going, okay, so we're here for a forged bill. I mean, we've got a guy that, and I don't know what his criminal history was with Minneapolis. I know he had a long history, like down in Texas or something like that. But it's so hard, because you have somebody that's in the back of your car who sounds like he's in distress. He sounds like he's having a medical emergency.
We've all had that.
To put him. Yeah. I had that after George Floyd, where a guy was screaming it in the back of my car.
They're all,
I can't breathe.
Now they're all screaming it, just so everyone knows. Everyone you arrest now yells, "I can't breathe." And if you can talk, you can breathe.
Your oxygen is coming in.
It's a scientific
and you're able
fact,
to expel it.
Yeah.
So, and that's why you'll hear cops say that all the time to people of like, "Hey, if you're screaming, you can breathe, dude." Like, I don't believe you. So at the time, they have no idea of knowing that he's got enough fentanyl in his system to kill a horse.
Of course not.
They don't know that he's under the influence of meth. But I just wonder if they could have moved the car, because by the time he's screaming that in the car, that's when the crowd is gathering. I guess, is it conceivable that you could have moved him to a separate location away from that chaos, called for medical while en route?
Yeah, have an ambulance meet you in a parking lot 4 blocks away.
Yeah. Say, hey, we're going, 4 blocks east of this location. Have medical meet us there. Get there, get him out, get him in a seated position, some sort of recovery position, start to render aid, start to assess. But in that sort of dynamic situation, you've got, from what I understand, you had Chauvin, you had 2 trainees, and you had another trainer. And that other trainer was kind of keeping the crowd at bay. And I think at one point, like, one of the trainees was like, hey, is this like excited delirium? Is this something that we should do here? Like, started running through that mental checklist, so you could see those gears were turning.
Right.
And then when you have your senior officer who's like, dude, like, we're doing this, that's kind of like your signal of like, okay, just shut up and color. Because he's got the training experience. He's maybe been through this before, or he has a history with this guy. So I think the biggest thing to take away is, one, even if you're new, don't be afraid to say something. Don't be afraid to actually physically do something if it's in the best interest of everybody on scene, to include the bystanders, your suspect, and the fellow officers. Because, I mean, like you said, they're in the number 2 lane of traffic.
Yeah. You've been a rookie. Obviously, for me, it was a very long time ago. But 2 trainees with 2 FTOs, right? So here's the senior FTO, Chauvin, doing this. Now, you and I may have said, whoa, what are you doing? I don't know many trainees that I've trained that would speak up, because, let's face it, we're not desk flyers. We're not working at a Target, at a checkout lane. When you get thrown into this job, I've had older trainees in their 30s start. I started it when I was 33, and I had seen a lot in the world. But I've had older trainees say, why do people do this? Why are they fighting us? Why? And they're in shock that the world works this way, right?
Yeah.
So when I see that these two trainees are put in this situation, people want to vilify them. And I'm like, hold on for a second.
Yeah.
Let's slow the roll on prosecuting the training officers, not the training officers, the officers in training.
The trainees.
Because unless you do this job, you can sit there from behind your desk or your steering wheel while you're listening and say, those trainees should have done this. It's very hard for a trainee in the police field, and it should not be, to challenge their training officer. And I always tell my trainees, listen, if you think at any point that I've spoken wrongly or done something not proper, or you see me and you think I might be crossing a line, just grab my arm and pull me aside and say, hey, this, that, and the other. Sometimes we need a check, right? But I've never crossed that line. But that's what I tell them. But these guys they're in a situation right now. The whole world's crashing down. They have no idea what the hell's going on. They can't challenge their FTOs, although one of them did say something. So, we all have people that we arrest and that say they can't breathe and everything. And what we do at my department is we just quickly get them out of there. There's no reason to wait for EMS if it's going to be a long time. Now, that city, Minneapolis, is huge. I don't know where the EMS is coming from. Would have been quicker to drive them or drive him somewhere else. I think once that crowd starts gathering, then you're also putting yourself in danger and the prisoner, because your number one goal is to protect the prisoner, right?
Yeah, you're responsible for their safety. We're
responsible.
Once you take ownership of them,
right? So now just move them, right? If that's what I think they could have done to make it a little bit safer for him and themselves. And then who knows? He probably still would have passed, unfortunately, because of the amount of drugs in his system. But at least they could have got ahead of it and maybe got him quicker medical attention.
Yeah.
But we're certainly not going to unhandcuff somebody and let them sit on the ground. That's not going to happen.
No, not somebody that's been resisting. It's hard enough to get somebody that's actively resisting you to get them into handcuffs, especially when they're high. Like the general public doesn't understand what meth strength
is. Yeah, right.
It's a real thing. It's no different than like somebody who's on PCP.
Right.
Yeah. PCP scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
So when you're tussling with these people, like everyone gets all bent out of shape. I'm like, oh, it was like 4 cops on one guy. I'm like, well, he was high out of his mind and he had the strength of a silverback gorilla.
Yeah, they don't understand.
Like
that's actually happens.
And yeah, I have been curled, so I'm not a small human being. At this time, I was weighing in probably about 220, 225. I had a guy curl me like I was a 10-pound dumbbell. That is an unsettling feeling.
Yeah. I'm much smaller than you, so I can't imagine.
Yeah, that's the first time I've ever had to call for code 3. Code 3 fill units.
Okay,
that was the very first time.
Code 3 out by you is what?
That is lights and sirens. Holy shit, get your ass here.
Okay, because we just say on the radio, "Holy shit, get more units here." We don't say code 3.
Well, that's usually how it comes out.
Right.
I think we actually on my patrol team we share a channel with an FTO team, so we have a bunch of recruits on that team.
Oh, all right.
And one of them, he had his very first. Oh shit! This guy's running from me. I need code 3 fills. And I think he said, "Oh shit, code 3 fill."
Perfect.
So we gave him a little bit of a hard time. Like, boy, it's a good thing we're on an encrypted channel now.
Oh, my God. Yeah, no one else heard that. All right, so we've been going for 20 minutes, and we have to move on to have to move on to the next news story because we're going to try and make this equally an equal episode of Woodworking in Law Enforcement. So that's the first news story that was kind of big. The second one being this Columbus, Ohio police shooting of the 15-year-old girl. So I have an article synopsis that I just wanted to read real quick. I know most of the people that are listening are familiar with this. So, Brandon, you can help fill me in once I finish reading this. Okay. So the victim's name was, you know what? I'm going to stick with the juvenile laws we have in Illinois and not release the victim.
Yeah, let's just go with 15-year-old black female.
A 15-year-old female who called the police. So 4:30 p.m. in the afternoon, roughly, Columbia police, or I keep saying Columbia. Maybe I want to go to Columbia. I don't know. In the jungles of Columbia. All right, so in Columbus, Ohio, officers responded to the 3100 block of Legion Lane. And the caller said females were there to stab her, and these people had put their hands on her. So the dispatchers weren't able to get more information about weapons at the scene. So officers arrive at 4:44 p.m., so it's 14 minutes later. There is body cam footage, which I urge everyone to go and look at. So the video from a responding officer shows the female appearing to try and stab two females when the officer fired, striking her. Now, they have an intern police chief, Michael Woods. He said that officers immediately began life-saving measures and medics were called immediately. She was taken to the hospital and pronounced dead at 5:30. The mayor, he said it was a tragic day for the city, which it was. His statement was, "It's a tragic day in the city of Columbus, a horrible, heartbreaking situation. I'm not just a mayor, I'm a father. The city of Columbus lost a 15-year-old girl today. And we know, based on this footage, the officer took action to protect another young girl in our community. But a family's grieving tonight, of course." So now I'm seeing online, I try not to look online anymore for stuff because I know we have to for this podcast.
Yeah.
What I try and do now is just skip past all the comments, right? Because you can get a news story, but you don't need the comments from the person saying they should have just shot the knife out of her hand, or they should have just shot her in the leg and to maim her. Or the guy, I put a meme up on my stories today of a fat guy eating a bowl of chips, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So, and he's the one and these are the people that are saying how this could have been prevented now.
Those are usually the ones that are the loudest, are the people in their underwear, typically in mom and dad's basement.
Yeah, like 35 and in their basement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a horrible call, just a horrible situation to show up on. And I can't find anything wrong with this call, right? There's no good shootings, we'll say. There's legally justified shootings, which we call a good shoot.
Yeah. Just in the terms of if it's like good, as in good, I'm not going to be criminally charged, or good, I'm within policy, good within the law.
Right. We know nothing's a good shoot, but it's qualified as a good shoot. So I don't want people to get upset and they say, "Oh, they said it was a good shooting." No, it's not. It's not what we mean.
Yeah. So this call is my nightmare.
Yeah. Right.
I dread getting that call. I think we can all agree, in this situation, there is no good. There is no right answer to this. So, in my view, watching that video, which I've watched no less than 24 times in the last 3-4 days, this officer had two options: stand by, let two people get stabbed by a deadly weapon, or use deadly force, confront that deadly threat with deadly force, and now he has to live with the fact that he shot and killed a 15-year-old girl.
Horrible situation they put in.
Like, I can't fathom this. Like, this idea of, like, what the hell did you want him to do? So we have a call. So we have a weapons call. Okay? Two people, or we have three involved parties. There's a knife in play. We don't know who's who. We show up to a chaotic scene. We don't have time to go, so who's here to fight who? Because we have one person charging another with a rather large kitchen knife. Separate from that person, pin another one against a car, reach back, and then bring a knife forward in a stabbing motion, not once but twice. Like, so for people in the White House, in particular the press secretary, to comment on that and then talk about systemic racism when there is absolutely no data. Let me say that again. There is zero data to show that there is some sort of racial component in police enforcement. We go where we are called. We don't just show up.
Wait, it's not like we just drive around and look for, well, we are driving around looking for crime, but we don't.
Well, we used to.
Yeah, no.
We used to until we started getting charged for it.
Yeah, now it's more of a reactive instead of proactive.
And it kills me.
Yeah.
Because now I have to wait until after somebody's raped somebody, until somebody else has been shot. I can't try to take that gun off the street beforehand. I mean, for the press secretary to do that and talk about, oh, well, we need to, reform and get rid of this systemic racism that disproportionately affects black and brown people. So my department actually did a study over the course of like 4 years.
Do tell.
And the results showed in uses of force, if you were the race most likely to have force used against them was Caucasian. Hispanic was number 2. Vietnamese was number 3. African American was number 4. Now, having said that, we don't have a robust African American population in my city. We do have predominantly Hispanic and white. They're pretty much 50-50 as far as populations made up. But we have a large Vietnamese community, and we have, I would say, a moderate-sized African American community. But statistically speaking, at least in my city, African Americans are about the 4th most likely to have force use against them. And it's white people, number 1, by a lot.
Well, you're not going to hear that in the news, though.
No, and I will tell you this. White people, in my experience, white people are probably about twice as likely to resist arrest than anybody else.
Sounds about
right. And that's just in my experience. And then to have somebody else to have an athlete, okay, LeBron James.
I don't know who that is.
Okay, so he's a really good basketball player. So I would say in the hierarchy of basketball, it goes Jordan, Kobe, LeBron, and
I know
I don't care. Fight.
I know the first one.
Okay,
I know the first one.
Yeah. So Jordan's a goat. Kobe says there is no Kobe without Jordan. LeBron just has his receding hairline that he actually got hair plugs. You can see the hairline grow back. Okay.
Breaking news. This just in.
Yeah.
LeBron has hair plugs.
Yeah. LeBron James can kiss my fucking ass. And you know what? LeBron, I don't care. Keep tweeting at him. Open invitation. You want to jump in a patrol car? Jump in a patrol car. I'll take you for a ride.
Yeah.
Come ride with me for a week.
He's no Shaq when it comes to law enforcement.
No. Yeah. And we can do it totally low
key. No one will even know you're there
the whole time.
Right.
Nope. Just come sit
I
in the
won't
car.
even take my picture with you.
Nope.
Because that's not how it works. You're not
I don't want a picture. I don't want a picture with him. For him to keep doing this, he does this just time after time after time. All he's doing is driving more division, more hate, and he's spreading racism.
I agree, and no one wants to hear that, but it is true.
No, he can get fucked.
Joey says that people need to understand that police don't want to shoot people. That's an event that sticks with an officer and that officer's whole family for their entire life. No one would choose to do that. But he would have had to do the same thing, obviously. That's our job.
Yeah, let's dive into that a little bit. This guy, let's say this guy's married with kids, right? Now his kids have to live with the fact that daddy has killed a kid.
Yeah, they go to school and they're like, hey, your dad's a killer.
Yeah.
Your dad's a killer.
Yeah.
I can't. Hopefully none of us will ever be in that situation, as he knocks on wood on the table. Because
dear God, please.
So, all right. So that was the second huge story before this podcast. There was another shooting, I think today, here in Chicago. Last week or a few days ago, there was a car in a McDonald's drive-thru, and someone jumped out of a car and opened fire and shot a young girl 6 times. She died, and the dad, who was the target, because he's a gangbanger, he just got shot once.
7-year-old little girl.
Yeah, so today on the news, actually, they got the shooter. They had an officer involved shooting on the expressway as they were trying to apprehend this guy. So I'm not sure if he's alive or dead yet because I haven't watched the news. But so that's going on. And then real quick, before we switch over to woodworking, the mayor of Chicago, which I'm glad I don't live in the city or work in the city, but they are now looking into a foot pursuit policy. Let's see. Before I can get into a foot chase, I have to call my supervisors and ask permission to chase some asshole with a gun who's trying to flee. So people, if you're coming to Chicago, please, first I say don't. Don't come to Chicago. Second of all, I say don't carry any valuables on you. Don't drive a car because you'll be carjacked. So, and don't try and get in a foot chase if you're a police officer. And as soon as I heard that, once again, here's a movie reference or a TV show reference for you. The show Watchmen on HBO. Opening scene, patrol officer in a squad pulls over a pickup truck. He's got some probable cause. There's a group of like homegrown terrorists out there. The officer is not armed. This is the future. So they wear face masks like we're doing now, right, because of the COVID, but they do it. They have to wear these yellow face masks and their hats pulled down. And he makes contact with the driver, and he gets the ID, and he goes back to the car. And he's sitting in his squad car, and he has to call dispatch, ask for a supervisor to release his weapon remotely that's in the dashboard because there's a bad thing going to happen. And they're like, what do you mean? We're not just going to release. What's the reason you need your weapon released? And by the time he gets the clearance to do so, the guy's out of a truck on him and shoots him. So it's like this surreal thing that's going to happen. I'm hoping not. But
so in Oakland, you have to, if your firearm comes out of the holster, you have to document it in a police report.
As use of force.
Yeah, it's basically you just document it as a use of force.
Right.
It's treated as such. And even within my department now, if we draw out, if we're at a low ready, you're fine. But
don't point.
But if it does get pointed at an individual, say you're dealing with a potentially armed suspect, you have to document that of like, hey, it's almost the same thing you document as the use of force. You put their information in and you go, hey, why did I
point my weapon?
Why did I exhibit my firearm in this manner? Like, oh, because they were believed to be armed, they're involved in a violent felony or something like that.
Right.
So, and I have actually seen it firsthand where officers are not drawing their guns because they don't want to do the paperwork.
Yeah, and that's what I mentioned last week's episode, because if we start thinking before reacting and relying on our training, we can end up dead, or the people that we're trying to protect get injured or end up dead.
Yeah.
So we have to stop this whole, oh my God, I'm afraid to get sued thing. And I will say this right now. Anybody that's listening that's a police officer, right now, tomorrow, this week, this month, set up your house and your belongings in a trust. It's a couple $1,000s. You put all your stuff in a trust, and it can never be taken away from you in a civil lawsuit. So look it up. Get in touch with your financial guy, whatever you have to do. But get your home, cars, and bank accounts in a trust that can't be touched from a civil lawsuit, because that's what's coming. We're going to have so many, the law that was just passed in Illinois, they are going to be able to take anonymous tips and complaints against officers who will be put on leave while it's investigated. And they have to take them. They have to take these reports. So even with no factual basis and no name given as a complainant. So they're going to be coming. I think we should be able to sue the people that we're arresting. But of course they don't have anything. So that's why they're criminals.
And I think next time we should get into qualified immunity.
Oh, we'll definitely bring up
why it's important.
Right, we'll definitely bring up qualified immunity next time.
Because if that goes, I go.
Yeah, I mean, it's time to turn Full House Woodworking into a full-time gig.
Well, that's why we're trying to turn it in, make it a little bit more profitable. That way, if things do go sideways here, we have something that maybe won't replace that income, but can at least mitigate the damage.
Right, supplement.
Yeah.
All right, so that's the end of our law enforcement episode for the week. So we're going to switch over to the woodworking segment.
Look at that segue. We started talking about taking my thing full time.
Oh yeah, wait, before we get into that, because we do have a question this week, right? So, it is a law enforcement question and not a woodworking question. So you can send all your questions to our email address at handcuffsandsawdustpodcast@gmail.com. And we'll say that again at the end of the episode. Or if you're on Instagram, and you follow Brandon or myself, you can just DM us at Full House Woodwork, right, Brandon? That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Or the Midnight Maker. You can just send me questions. So,
and if you're not following us, why? Why are you not doing this?
And if you're not following us and you're listening to this, I don't know how you started listening to us without following us.
Yeah, if you're not following us and you're listening to us, I want you to reach out to me. I have questions.
Right.
I have questions, and they will be answered.
All right. So my question that was sent to me today comes from Michelle Hill. She's the traveling crane. Michelle and I had made friends about a year ago, 18 months ago, when I first got into woodworking. She's fantastic, great maker. So her main question, she had two. So what are your thoughts on the new laws that have been passed in some states? And she named 2 states, and I think I have them right here. She said Oklahoma and Florida. So when you're being surrounded by people that are rioting and you want to get away, and some people are getting struck by cars, and they were getting charged as a result of trying to flee a dangerous situation. So she wanted to know what we think about the new laws being passed in those 2 states, where those people are not culpable anymore for trying to escape harm. So we'll just say, have you answered that one first?
Well, you have a right to protect yourself. So if you're, find yourself in the middle of a protest and people are presenting an imminent danger to your safety or the safety of the passengers in your car, yeah, I would say you have the right to get the hell out of Dodge. And if somebody is in front of your car violating the law as to being a pedestrian in the roadway, yeah, they're at fault for that accident. So I'm blown away by the fact that people were actually being charged for trying to protect themselves like that.
It's out there, right?
And of course it's in Florida.
Yeah,
right.
So, yeah, if you ever find yourself in that situation, it's better to be judged by 6 than carried by 12, or judged by 12 than carried by 6.
Flip it.
Yeah, judged by 12 and carried by. I'll have a really big casket, so it'll be 12 people carrying my casket because I'm going to be really heavy by then.
Are you taking the CNC with you?
Yes, I can't leave it behind. Her other question was, that's a good question, Michelle, and I appreciate you asking us that. And she wanted to know our thoughts on all these people that want to get rid of law enforcement, right? So what should we do? Should we just abolish the police in these states or cities that they don't want the police and then let them fend for themselves? And Michelle had a great old movie reference, Escape from New York. Yeah.
Yep.
Right? With Snake Plissken, Kurt Russell. So that was her. She wanted to know our opinions on that. And I had said to her, I texted her back and said, sometimes we think that, right, as police officers. Fuck it. Let these people fight for themselves. And especially with this last call with the knife and stabbing a girl, do they want us just to stand there and wait till all the bloodshed is done, and then whoever's left standing will arrest, or now we won't even show up anymore? And my thought was, well, as much as that would show something to the people that don't want the police, there are 90% of the people in these communities need the police. They need the protection from the gangbangers and the drug dealers and the prostitutes and everything else, so they would suffer. They're the ones that would suffer, not the people that don't want us.
Yeah. So I one of the things I'm really interested in is working gangs. So I've typically worked in gang areas. I've also worked on the richer side of the city I work in, and I can tell you without question, the worst things I've ever had yelled at me have been in the rich part of town. And the people who, during the rioting, were the ones who would come out and say, hey, we really appreciate you. Don't go away. We want more of you here. We're people in gang neighborhoods.
See, they need you.
The vindictive side of me wants to, and I'll be honest, the other night when I first saw the press secretary's comments on the Ohio shooting was like, okay, fine. Let's just all call in sick one day, nationwide.
I would love it.
Let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
If you don't need us, fine. Let's see how you like it. But then the patriot in me comes out.
That's not why we do this job. We do the job to protect the people.
this is the United States of America. Okay. Are we perfect? No. This is the world's greatest experiment. We are in uncharted territories. This country is like a teenager right now in the grand scheme of things. We are right now figuring out what we want to be as a country. And I think it's important that we have these conversations because rules matter. We're the enforcer. We're the one that has to hold you accountable for it. We're the person that will stop you and say, you messed up. You violated this rule. Here is your penalty. It's a ticket. Here, you violated a big rule. You have to go to adult timeout. That's how I explain jail to my kids. It's adult timeout.
That's awesome.
Like when I send you to your room and I keep you in there for a period of time, I am sentencing you to jail for 5 minutes. For an adult, it has to be longer because you know better.
Right. We need rules and laws. Otherwise, anarchy takes over.
Yeah. And I mean, if we really want to dive deep into it, think about how many cops are veterans. Think about all the training that veterans have received in survival, in violence. There's some of them. The only thing protecting primarily these people that want to get rid of the police, the only thing protecting them from those people are the police.
Right. Yeah. So
like the only thing that is preventing me from coming and taking your stuff is rule of law.
It's simple,
because
right?
I guarantee you, I have more skills than you. In
I will take your stuff.
From
yeah.
you. I will take your shit, and it will be my shit now.
Right.
Like if I want a saw stop, I'm going to find somebody that maybe can't defend themselves, and I'm going to take that saw stop.
Right.
But I can't because
there's a law.
There's a rule of law.
Right.
And I would not do well in jail.
No. All right. So, Michelle, thank you very much for your question. And we'll wrap up the police officer side for now until we get back to the Fallen Officers Memorial. So we're going to get into some woodworking. So I was joking with Brandon earlier, and Michelle had mentioned that she was so glad to hear us last week's episode talking about standing with your hands on your hips, wondering, what the fuck am I doing? I have no idea what I'm building. And she was so happy that she's not the only one in her garage standing there looking at a stack of wood that doesn't know how to put it together. Did I mention that I was contacted? I have a new project, maybe. I was contacted by a police department to build a 5-foot flag. Did I mention that?
Oh, yeah. So I actually, I don't think I mentioned it last time. I did a table for the guy that actually designed my logo.
Oh, okay.
He and I went to the police academy together, and we did a coffee table, but the tabletop is a blue line flag.
Oh, yeah.
And he's really into like it's like Japanese culture and stuff. So it's a Japanese style coffee table.
So it's like 2 inches off the ground, or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it has a built-in heater, and a blanket goes between the tabletop and the frame, so you can sit there, and then it a real low power heat, and it will hold the heat in as you sit underneath.
Get out!
It's one of the coolest things I've ever built. I had absolutely no idea what it was when he mentioned it to me. I was like, "Yeah, sure, I can build that."
Sure, YouTube.
Yeah, and there wasn't crap on YouTube.
Hey, there's a YouTube video for you to make.
Yeah, I know. But it was I did it all out of 2x4s because I'm an idiot instead of just doing 1x4s. But like that tabletop was like 30 pounds.
I'm sure. Yeah. Did you stain it as the colors of a blue line flag?
Yeah. So I did.
Okay.
We did the stars with our Cricut.
Okay.
Which kind of sucked because we couldn't do all 50 just based on the size of how big these stars were going to be.
Right. So it was like 13 stars on there.
Well, no, we had to do like 3 different cuts and then like
surgically
attach them on.
Hoping they're
the right
spaced
order.
properly. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, that was the most stressful part of the entire thing. So like this thing is 2x4s with like 3-inch screws going through each stripe to hold it all together.
Did you use Power Pro hardware or was it someone else?
I think it was Spax.
Ah, okay. Shout out to Spax and Power Pro.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. But I ended up running out of one type, and my driver back came in hand because I could just quick switch to the next fastener head I needed.
Driver back. I need to get me one of those.
If you don't have one, go get one. It's the tool you didn't know you needed.
Yeah, I see a lot of them.
Michelle over there, they're great people. She's actually a dispatcher, and she runs driver back with her dad.
No shit. I didn't know she was a dispatcher.
Yep.
All right, so she should be
awesome
listening to the
human
show,
being.
obviously,
She better
because
be.
she's in law enforcement.
When we get big time, I expect Driver Back to be a sponsor.
No, that'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? Mind if
Yeah, I have two impact drivers, and they both have driver backs on them.
Yeah, I want to get one of those. Oh, I'm getting text by Joey. He was going to make an actual appearance next time. So he's now our ghost sponsor in the background, but he wants to come on again where he can actually speak. All right, so so I got to price this 5-foot flag out, right? I've never made a flag that big, obviously. I did have a buddy that wanted me to make him a blue line table, so that it's on the back burner. He actually called me today, and he's in like North Carolina or something. I think he fucking moved on me. But so I didn't know how to price out this big flag, so I had to do math, which I'm not really good at.
Probably shouldn't be doing
I
that.
know. So I took out the protractor and a slide rule, and I figured
Did
out.
you get the abacus going?
I didn't get the abacus. That's next time. It makes too much noise, and
Okay.
sometimes I slam my fingers in between the fucking little wooden pieces. But
Yeah, and at the middle of the night, you'll wake up everybody in the house.
yeah, it's bad enough I got CNCs and saws going in the middle of the night. So the flag is 38% larger than any flag that I've made, because I usually make 37 inches wide by 19.5 inches tall, and then I make two other smaller sizes. So I took the 38% and I multiplied it to the price of my large flag. So it gave me a 38% more price increase, right? Is that how you do it?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's how I would probably do it, is if it's 38% bigger, I would probably just increase the price.
Right, that's the
by
fair way to do it.
38%.
But I've seen some of these big flags on Etsy, and they're like $500, and I'm like, what the fuck are these people? Are they making this out of like ambrosia or Purple Heart? I don't.
Well, maybe they're factoring in shipping, because Etsy gives you a boost if you offer free shipping, but then you have to build that into your price.
You know what? I got
So maybe that's what they're doing.
maybe, but I offer free shipping. I have an Etsy page for anybody that doesn't know. You can go to Midnight Maker on Etsy and see my flags and bottle openers. And I know you're talking about either making an Etsy store or doing a whole website, which I want to switch over to eventually, is building my own website so I don't have to pay Etsy. But I just sold an oak, red line, and blue line flag through Etsy. I didn't know the person. She's on the East Coast. She is a public information officer, and her husband is a police officer and firefighter,
Oh, cool.
public safety officer. So I took a bath on shipping, right? Even though I use ShipNerd. ShipNerd's a big sponsor of the Midnight Maker actual Instagram shipping page. I use them most of the time. So they saved me a lot of money, but I didn't factor in the cost in my price. So I lost maybe $25 in the profit of the flag.
That's what I found, is when I build something for the first time, I usually end up underpricing it by a ton. And so if you want to get something on the cheap, like, just hit me up and make sure it's the first time that I'm building it.
Right.
Because
It's going to go up.
I'm gonna accidentally screw myself over.
Right.
But I actually did a red and blue line flag too, around Christmas time.
Okay.
It was like somebody that knew a dude I was in the Air Force with, and they hit me up. I guess her husband's a cop and like a volunteer firefighter, which hurt my brain to even think about. But it was, and initially I didn't really know how I felt about the idea of, because I've seen it where you like kind of split the one stripe down the middle and do half red, half blue.
Yeah, that's how I did it.
Like, yeah. So she actually wanted it to go red line, black line, blue line.
Oh, cool.
So have two of the white stripes. And I was sitting there going like, man, that's going to look weird. And after I was done with it, it's quite honestly, it's one of my favorite flags that I've done.
Yeah, very cool.
Like, we ended up doing the chamfer edge around all the stripes, the union, all that stuff.
All right.
And just, it came out looking real nice. But then that was the first time I ever had to ship anything. I had to ship it all the way to New Jersey.
Did you use ShipNerd?
I didn't. I used Pirate Ship.
I've checked them too.
So it seems like Pirate Ship for that one was going to be a little bit cheaper.
Okay.
And I'm one of the, like, I'm lazy. I didn't want to keep researching stuff. I'm like, everything's already set up on Pirate Ship, so I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah, I would look into I open all three windows, right? So I open up
Yeah.
the USPS because I can print labels from home. I open up Ship Nerd, and I open up Pirate Ship, and I price them all out, and then I pick the cheapest one. And I didn't get onto the pirate ship boat. I didn't get onto the pirate ship until my buddy Jonathan Back, J.R. Back, he told me about pirate ship because he's shipping 5-foot flags. You know, he's making a bunch of them. So he always looks up all three before he picks one. And
Yeah, I remember seeing him talk about that and going, that's a really good idea. I should start doing that.
right,
But for the most part, my clientele has all been, for the most part, local.
mine too, which is great.
So, because I can just meet somebody and deliver it that way.
Right. And then we're just paying for gas and time,
Yeah.
not shipping.
But for half the time, I can tie it into like going to work or coming home from
Sure.
work or something like that.
Yeah.
But like I had an old supervisor, I did a challenge coin flag for him, but he's stationed over in England. So
That's cool.
I had to, well, it was until I saw the shipping prices.
Did you sell your
Like
first
double-
kid and then were you able to ship it over to England? No, don't feel
I thought
guilty.
about it.
I had to sell a kid, but here's your flag.
We're in the process of holding Hunger Games to see which kid's going to go.
Nice. Do you have a kid named Katniss?
No,
Okay.
no.
All right, good. So, shipping, yeah. So, that was one of the main projects I have that's starting up that's new. And then I'm working on this Jumanji. It's a maker challenge, maker collab 2021. We're doing a Jumanji-themed movie prop. And my buddy Delmar, Uncle Deli, he designed it. We did it out of walnut. So the push is on to finish that. That's due May 1st.
It looks phenomenal just from what I've seen.
From
what you've put up on Instagram.
Yeah, I've never worked with walnut before because, like I said, I'm a fake woodworker. So now that I have, I think I might be able to qualify myself as a woodworker because I've actually made something out of walnut.
So the only time I've ever actually used hardwood, there was a guy on Facebook Marketplace selling like offcuts for $50.
Okay.
So I spent $50 and got all of his offcuts.
Nice.
And it's the only time I've ever worked with walnut. The other day when I bought the lumber for my other supervisor's challenge coin rack was the only time I've bought in walnut. Well, these like 2-foot long, like 1x6s cost me like $50.
Well, then you were overcharged.
Well, it was I don't have a lot of hardwood dealers.
You might want to run this guy's name and see if he's wanted because he robbed you.
Then I lose my job.
Yeah, right.
Well, no, it was through Home Depot.
Oh, well,
and there was my problem.
Yeah, right.
I'm looking.
You need a
for
hardwood store.
A hardwood dealer. Yeah. So I think I found one. It's actually in the area that I work.
Oh,
so
awesome.
I'm going to start scoping it out in the middle of the night.
Yeah, you should. They might even give you offcuts for free because just sitting in their bin. So that's always a good thing to check on. That's how I got some. Delmar actually gave me a stack of this walnut. It's like a bunch of them. And I asked him, I'm working on a golf club display. I'm not going to say case. It's going to be a 2-piece 5 golf club display wall unit. So it'll have a bottom tray and a backing that will mount to the wall. It'll have a circle with green felt in it that the club head will rest on. And then it goes up to the top. We'll have another wall-mounted part in the top with holes where the clubs go through. I'm doing this on the camera so Brandon can see what I'm doing, but I'm sticking my finger up through my hand.
It looks incredibly inappropriate.
Yeah.
And it'll be censored the second we put this up
So,
on like YouTube or something. Yeah, exactly. See, you can't do that.
Right, I can't do that. So I'm working on that, and I have oak. I have some red oak for it, and I made this corkboard out of oak, and I hated it because it splinters and stuff. So after working with the walnut, I asked Delmar, I'm like, hey man, can I use this walnut that you left here? And he's like, what do you want to do with it? I'm like, well, I want to make this golf thing I'm doing. He's like, yeah, fuck yeah, do it. He said, I just wanted to make a mallet handle out of that. I said, all right, I'll just mill up some of the walnut for his mallet handle. That's hard to say. So Joey says that we should look on Facebook in our area for search sawmill groups. And they all saw up logs. Some have a kiln and dry them out. And he has access to hardwood and cherry. He's down in Georgia.
Oh, nice.
So I do check Facebook occasionally for wood, and then I get like, here's a 19th century piece of shit dresser. It falls under wood because they tag the hashtag wood or something. I'm like, I don't want that. I actually want wood, like loose wood.
Yeah. So I'll search like hardwood lumber, and it'll be like somebody is like remodeling their kitchen and they're just throwing like all the plywood from their old cabinets
right.
out.
Here's our
like,
shitty plywood.
Free whoever wants it. I'm like, I don't want that.
I don't want that.
Good
Right. So I can't. But Jonathan sold his bags of his sawdust.
Seriously, he's like a couple $100.
Yeah. So I got a bag listed on Facebook Marketplace for $50, and it's still sitting in my fucking garage.
Yeah. So I actually was driving around the other day, kind of exploring a little bit because we live it's a real small town and it's surrounded by like foothills and mountains.
John Cougar Mellencamp wrote a song about that.
Yeah, he did.
Do you have a pink house?
No, it's green.
Okay, all right. So you're driving around
about painting
your small town,
but out in the country a little bit, there's some walnut orchards.
Okay. Do they have fallen trees?
So I pulled off to the side of the road. My wife goes, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm looking for fallen trees." Why? Because if there's a fallen tree, we're going and getting a chainsaw, and I'm dropping you guys off at home so I can load this thing up with a bunch of procured
walnut that just happened to fall on the side of the road.
Yeah, it was on the curtilage. It wasn't on.
It wasn't on the private property. Okay, yeah. Didn't step one foot on the private property to get it.
So. Yeah, so I'm going to start looking around. And then one of my neighbors, like, she has a maple tree that she's getting cut down. I'm like, maybe you let me know when that comes down, and maybe I drag that over here and
heck yeah,
piss everybody in the HOA off.
We took down a humongous, it had to be 30-foot oak last fall. And I asked the guys to save me a part of the trunk. So they cut me a 52 inches long section of the trunk, and it's 26 inches in radius, and it's sitting on the side of my garage. I didn't know at the time because my buddy gave me the phone number to these tree guys. I want to get it slabbed and stickered. And for those of you that don't know what stickering is, you take a sticker from a woodworker and you put it on the piece of wood. No, they're just pieces. They're just sticks that you fucking stack up on top of each other, and then you put sticks down in another slab. So I wanted to get it stickered and slabbed last year, and I found one guy who kiln dries stuff. You can, if you have room, you can put it in his kiln. It's a natural outdoor kiln. So I'm like, oh, cool, man. So I message him, and he's like, yeah, okay, there's room in the kiln. How are you going to get it here? I'm like, wait a minute. I thought you were going to come out and slab it for me and then fucking take it. And he's like, no, you have to bring it here. I'm like, I can't fucking put this thing in my truck. I wouldn't be able to drive down the street. It's so heavy. So it sat on the side of my house, and it's still sitting there. And finally, my buddy, my best friend in the whole world, he just told me, hey, those guys that cut that fucking tree down, they'll slab it for you. So now I got to call him back. So I got to call him back, ask him to come out this year and slab it, and then cut it into slabs, and then I can maybe do something with it in a couple of years after it dries.
So how quick will it dry in a kiln? I know that for natural air, it's about a year for every inch thick it is.
Right, I read that too.
Like, how much does a kiln?
I don't know.
Actually speed up that process.
I'm not sure because he said he's got fans in there and it's all glass, so the sun radiates the heat inside there, and then the fan circulates it, I guess, and then it just speeds up the process maybe by half. I don't know. It's a technical question. I'm not sure how to answer.
Yeah. If anybody knows, reach out to Handcuffs and Sawdust Podcast at gmail.com.
Right. Give us some answers on how long it takes to kiln dry.
We're idiots.
Yeah, we don't know. We're fake woodworkers.
Worst woodworkers
ever. So I mentioned what I had going on, and I would like to talk about, I know there are different ways to make flags, but I wanted to mention how I do my flags, since this is the woodworking project. And this is how oh, look, Joey says kiln will get the moisture below 10% in 3 to 5 days.
Okay.
Joey with the save. Thanks, Joey.
Joey's a real woodworker. That's why he's here.
He's a fantastic carpenter. Oh, my God. And builder. You should see his stuff. If you guys don't follow Joey on Instagram, it's JMay Services, and you can see some of the amazing stuff that this guy builds. If he lived near me, I'd have him helping me with finishing all the work I have here. So thanks, Joey. Appreciate that. So my flags, I used to go to one of the big box stores, either the green one or the orange one. Until they sponsor the show, I'm not going to mention them by name. And
I'll mention them if they screw me over.
Right, that's the only way we're going to do it. So the green store, I used to buy all my poplar from the orange store, and then their stuff is more green. Like the wood itself is a green color, the actual poplar, because I make my flags out of poplar, unless specified pine. Because I started making the first ones out of pine, and then when you burn them, there's a lot of a sap in the pine that comes out.
Yeah.
And sometimes it leaves spots in the stain, and I just don't like working with the sap stuff. So I started upcharging, so I mostly only offer poplar. And finally I went to a hardwood store out by me called Great Spirit Hardwoods. They are on Instagram if you want to check out their page. And they have an amazing selection of hardwoods. And I bought 45 board feet of poplar, rough sawn. So I have to mill everything up by myself. But I saved $200. I think it was like $160. And I got some sapel mahogany. And I priced it out at the green store. And because the green store will sell 4-foot, 8-foot sections wrapped, packaged, already perfect for cutting to make flags.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really much better than the orange store, I think. The wood is. It's lighter color. There's a couple different color variations. But this time I just bought the poplar, and I have to mill it up myself. So what I'll do is if I'm going to do a 37-inch flag, I know some of my buddies make 36-inch flags, because then they can get 2 flags out of one 6-foot piece of wood.
See, I used to think that too, but you don't account for squaring up an end.
Right.
Or the kerf when you cut
1/8-inch
it in
kerf,
half.
right. So I've actually just switched my blade to an Amana Mamba blade, so it's a thin kerf ripping blade, so I'm actually able to save more wood that way. So I'll cut down everything at the miter station to 37 inches, and then rip my strips down to 1.5 inches on the table saw. And what I found is when I was buying the 8-foot boards to do the flags, I'd always have roughly 22 to 24 inches left after cutting off the amount I needed for my flags. So I would mill up all the wood I needed for my flags, 13 stripes. I usually get, out of a 4-foot board, I'd get 2 4-foot boards. I get 14 stripes for one flag. So then I mill it up, and then the staining process begins. I'll try and do 5 or 6 flags at a time because I want to run the saw only once, right? Because you're creating so much sawdust in the air, even with an air filtration system. If I'm milling up flag lumber for the night, that's all I'm doing. I'm not going to be staining the same day because I don't want all that fine dust to settle in on the stain. So I'll lay out all my wood. I search the boards to make sure that I don't have any bent ones or warped ones, and then I lay them 13 out at a time, and I'll just start marking them, which ones would look better burned, darker, which ones are lighter and would show the blue line or the red line better or brighter. And I no longer burn the blue line.
Same here.
Okay, because it was making it way too dark, right?
Yeah, it was almost like you couldn't distinguish between that
and the black
and the black.
Right. So I stopped doing that, and now I offer. There's different versions you can have of my flags. You can have all stained, where you're staining white, red, and blue, or white and black with a blue line. You can do a burned and stained, so the white stripes would be the burned stripes. You know how that goes. Or you can do all painted. Or I've actually, the last few blue line ones I've done all stained, so I'll stain the black for the union and the black stripes, burn the other stripes, and then for the blue stripe, I paint it. So now you've got a painted blue line, and it stands out way more, and some of the guys have wanted that. So once that's all done, everything is separated. I use razor blades to mark where the union is. So I'll take the 6 stripes or the 7 stripes that make up the union on my size flag. I'll remove the all black ones. So I'll put the 2, 4, and 6 together I'll mark them with the measure, the distance I need for the union, and then I pound in razor blades from a box cutter. So I pound them in, and I got on the table, I'll have everything's numbered and labeled what flag it's for. So I got Brandon's flag, stripe 13, stripe 11, stripe 9. All the ones that need to be black are on this side, and I'll mix it in with Joey's flag, and all the ones that are supposed to be black, all the ones that are supposed to be burned, and all the ones that get the razor blades in them. And then that's how I do my stain line for the union. I used to make the union out of one block of wood. And so then you got 6 stripes, the block of wood, and below that you got the other 7. Right? Is that right?
Yeah.
So, oh, shit. I'm having a malfunction here. Windscreen malfunction. Yeah. I'm Italian, so my hands are flying when I'm talking.
Yeah.
But I have a problem with my miter station. It's not square. My miter saw, I've squared it. It's Ryobi. If they want to send me a square one, that'd be great. I've squared it up several times. And what I'm finding is when I cut the union out of one large piece of wood, it's not square to the stripe sitting next to it. So I stopped doing it that way. So now I just make 13 stripes, and I have to use the razor blades to differentiate the stain from the burn. And then I engrave it all as one on the CNC once it's all together. This 5-foot flag I'm doing, the union's 2 feet wide. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it on my CNC machine. I measured it out the other day. I think 3 feet would be sticking off the front of the machine. Now I could build
so you could probably get something to support that in so it doesn't tip?
Build a stand maybe.
Yeah.
Or drive up to Jonathan Back's house, his shop, because he's got that 10-foot by 5-foot CNC, and he said, bring that sucker up here, we'll engrave it. So unless I can figure out a way to do it myself, I'll be driving up to Jonathan's. But then after everything is stained up and everything's numbered, I don't have a jig. I know some of my buddies like Don Can, the dysfunctional woodworker, he has a table set aside where he's got a fence screwed on at the bottom and the side that keeps it square. And then he lays the flag on that, and he puts braces across it, and then he joins them together. I have aluminum bar clamps, the square ones, 4-footers, and I just put clear packing tape on them so the glue doesn't stick and it doesn't mar the surface of the flag. And basically what I do is I put the flag in upside down. So I'll take the top 3 stripes, and then I'll flip them and put them towards my belly on the bench. And that's how I do it. I load it up upside down. Last year I made some oak cawls. So I put cawls on the ends and in the middle. And I didn't know what a cawl was. My good friend, Hung, at Wiley Woodworks, he told me about making cawls. And I did them by hand with a planer, or hand plane, which is really old. And so the middle of the cawl is closer to the wood than the ends. So when you start clamping down on the ends, right, it brings everything together. That's the theory. I don't know if my calls are correct, but everything works. So I call it up, and then I glue and brad nail the back straps in. That's how the large flags are done. The oak one, I screwed 52 holes in the back of the straps.
I saw
right,
that.
So I could sink in a Kreg fine thread screws into the flag because I didn't trust my nailer going into oak. I don't know if it would, but I know poplar is a hard wood, but it's a soft hardwood, right?
Yeah, but it's softer.
Right. So I didn't want to chance the nails not making it through the backings. And I wish what I could do, maybe I will in the future, if I were to, after staining, then polyurethane before assembly, then I would glue up the flag like you glue up any 2 pieces of wood that you're joining. Because then you can wipe off the glue if it's polyurethane. But if you do it, and I found, if you do it before you poly stuff, the glue, you start wiping off the glue, then you start wiping off stain.
Smears.
Yeah, and then you take stain off, then you're screwed. So for now, that's how I do it. 13 stripes, individually stained. Then I put it together. Then I do the back straps, and with the nails, brad nails. I use, I think, an inch brad nails and the glue, and I let it sit for normally 2 hours, and then I'll put it aside for a couple of days before it goes on the CNC. And then after it's CNC'd, then I do the poly. I'll spray the poly on like 5 flags at one time. And if I only have 1 flag to do, I don't spray it because it's a pain in the ass to set everything up out in the garage.
Oh, yeah.
And I just brush the shit on. So that's my flag rundown, how I make a flag.
So mine's kind of similar to that. I still do the separate union.
Okay.
So it just because I didn't want to have to worry about razor blades and getting straight lines and all that stuff, because I inevitably would screw that up. But so out here we don't have green store. We only have orange and blue.
Okay.
So I have found that blue store tends to give me straighter boards. And when I say straighter, it's not by much.
Okay.
So I started out by just using like pine common 1x2s, right? So then I've switched now to using the select 1x2s or select 1x4s, and I'll rip down my own stripes.
Yeah.
And then like you, I try to do all my cutting at once. So if I have I'll make one big lumber run, and I'll just spend a whole day just knocking out long stripes, short stripes. Leftovers go as backers, and then let all that settle. And I try to do it on my days off so I can have the garage door open. Because I don't have that air filtration system, so that
right.
I can use my little janky Harbor Freight miter saw.
Okay.
That's going to be, I think, probably the next thing I upgrade.
Don't get a Ryobi. Delta Cruiser, I think you might want.
That's the one I want.
Yeah.
So I actually had a buddy that got it, and then unfortunately his house got burglarized like before he even had a chance to set it up.
Oh my God.
And they ransacked his garage, but he's been able to recoup a bunch of his tools and stuff with his home insurance policy.
Good.
But so I try to cut everything down, and then I'll burn whatever needs to be burned. Like you, I've started leaving that blue line untouched.
Good.
And then I still stain it though.
Yeah.
I haven't tried painting it, but I might try that out just to see how it looks. I'll burn everything that needs to be burned, and then I'll lay everything out, stain everything, let that sit and dry.
Is this the next day? Because you've
after everything's settled, right. Usually the next day, I'll stain everything, and then usually thankfully with the water-based stain, it's dried pretty quick.
Right.
And then I can start tracing on, stars and stuff, so I can start carving those with my Ryobi little Dremel tool, which is way better than what I had started with. So the first flag I did, we were, not flush with cash, so we were trying to be economic and stuff. And I was like, well, I need a Dremel tool, a rotary style tool, right, to do this. So I went to every person's friend when you're looking for an economic option. I went to Harbor Freight.
Yeah.
And I got their little Chicago Electric one that came with like the flex shaft and everything. And I think I carved like 5 stars, and then the battery died.
It was battery operated, not an electric one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was battery operated. So I go, okay, fine. It's a little like 4 volts. So I'm like, cool. It won't take that long to charge.
12 hours later.
Like 18.
Oh my God.
It took 4 days.
What?
4 days.
Oh, to engrave it.
50 stars.
Oh my God.
Yeah, just to freaking carve 50 stars, because this thing was so slow at trick. And I'd finally get fed up. I'm like, screw it, throw it on, carve a star, die, and because I was impatient.
Right.
So eventually, after that one, I was like, if we get one more flag order,
I'm gonna buy
the
something.
Ryobi thing.
Yeah.
I'm buying something better, like whether it's the Dremel or the Ryobi. And I had a bunch of, I still do have a bunch of Ryobi stuff. So I had the battery platform. So I saw the Ryobi one. And I was like, I'm getting it. And that thing is just a godsend.
Oh, it's got to be after what you had.
Oh yeah, I can do now a full union in like an hour and a half, 2 hours, with outlining it from a stencil and everything. And then I used to glue every individual stripe together.
Yeah, like we were just mentioning.
Yeah. So, but what I started to run into was like that glue squeeze out.
Right.
And even with putting just a little bit towards the unstained portion, I was still getting a lot of squeeze out on that side. And then I was starting to worry about well, I mean, some of these boards have a lot of tension in them.
Yeah.
And I was worried about flags exploding. So I was like, well, let me try one where I just, some clamping pressure down
Right.
to get everything nice and tight, and then just glue and nail on my backers, and just as a test to see what happened. And that worked really well. So that's what I've been doing now is I'll get everything lined up. I'll set up kind of like a makeshift fence, kind of like Don does, where I'll clamp stuff down to my workbench.
Okay.
Check it for square like 18,000 times.
Right. Even though it's a rustic wooden flag. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, when it inevitably goes out of square, I'm like,
Right.
and you're rustic.
Right.
There we go. Farmhouse.
Nice.
So, and then I'll just clamp it down. I always do the one that like kind of splits the stripes and the union just to join those together real quick.
Yeah.
Do that one outside to the last one on the inside, and then I'll either use my router to put a keyhole in the backer itself,
Okay.
or I've started. I'll have like these like inch by inch cutoffs that I'm just going to burn. That I will brad nail glue on
Right.
and put some hanging hardware on there, and then that's what's used to hang it, or I'll put a keyhole in there or something.
I'm glad you mentioned hanging hardware because I do put hanging hardware on my flags. I don't just let people put them on the floor and look at them. So I've done a few. I did a solid oak pallet flag, really rustic, for my cousin, and they gave it to her boss. And I did keyholes in that. And my thinking was, on my back straps, I don't like to run them all the way to the end side, top to bottom. I like a recessed in of about 1/8 of an inch. So if you're doing that and you're putting a keyhole on two of them, if they're not the exact size and distance from the top of the flag, it's not going to be square. It won't be level, I mean, when you put it up.
Yeah.
So I stopped doing the keyholes. I do use Hangman products. They make a fantastic French cleat that you can use for your flags. So I'll either add a piece of wood between the two middle brackets, and then I'll put the French cleat on there. Or I have some 65-pound metal wire, and I've been using that a lot, where you put a D-ring and a D-ring, and then you just loop the wire through it. And the flags only weigh 15 pounds. And then I put rubber feet on the ends. I put little small tiny rubber feet on the ends of the side or the end bracket, so it sits nicely on the wall.
Yeah, so I actually used the Hangman cleat when I did a concealment case, because I was so concerned with how heavy it was. Because again, first time I had built it, I built the flag for the lid, and I was like, well, it needs to sit on something. I don't want to put the backers on there because that's going to go in. The guy wanted to mount his rifle in there.
Okay.
So I didn't want stuff protruding in and marring the rifle. So I go, well, okay. So I just put it on a sheet of plywood.
Yeah.
Well, crap. How thick should I do the plywood?
3/4 of an inch.
Hell yeah, brother.
Right.
Holy crap.
And then trim it out,
heavy.
so it looks like it's just one solid piece of wood.
That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
And then I bordered it with the rest of the 1x2s. Oh my God, that thing was so heavy. I had to buy like the heavy duty struts.
Yeah. I still want to make one of those.
Just to hold it up.
Okay.
It's way easier than you think.
But I don't know if I want to do the sliding door to the left with some, drawer slides, or the sliding door down with drawer slides, or like you did, the up with the hydraulic lift. I don't know which one yet.
Yeah. So I did the RFID lock inside.
Okay.
So you'd scan the card
right.
and then lift it up, and then the struts would hold it up. But I would probably, if I had to do it all over again, I would look into how difficult it would be to do the drawer slides, because that was the struts were just the easiest thing.
Sure.
And that was what I wanted to do. Is I wanted it to be simple so I could get it out because it was a Christmas present. Yeah. And then USPS completely destroyed it.
Oh no, you're
like to the point where it was almost not salvageable.
Holy shit!
Oh man, so it was for a friend of my wife's from North Dakota. So we were sending it to Wyoming, and holy crap, she sent pictures. She's like, "So this happened," and it's just, I mean, the border's like chipped out.
Oh man,
the lid was moved in a way that the lock couldn't disengage.
So you couldn't open it.
So yeah, so she couldn't open it. So I'm just sitting there like, so I had it attached with just a piano hinge on the top. And I'm sitting there like freaking out, sick to my stomach. Like, I'm going to have to eat the cost on this. Like, this is like, I am like just seething with anger towards USPS. And then, so she had showed her husband early, like, hey, I got you this, but
it doesn't open.
The post office kind of screwed it up.
Hope you don't need to get to your weapon.
Yeah. Well, it kind of worked out because he likes to tinker.
Oh, okay. So he took off.
So he tinkered with it, and he actually
nice.
fixed it. So
good.
But I was sitting there like, God dang it! So we actually ended up making him like a set of coasters and sending them out there. Like I'm so irritated with USPS.
Yeah, I haven't had that happen yet, but I haven't had to make something that opens yet to ship. So
yeah.
Well, I've had 3 people tell me, "Hey, do you do concealment flags?" I'm like, not yet, but yeah, well, let me know when you do. So I'm already building a back order, and I don't even have time to do them yet.
So yeah, it's really the hardest part is just figuring out how you're going to put together the cabinet carcass, which is, I mean, the way I did
it.
I had
pocket holes.
Hell yeah.
And glue.
1x6s and then set it on a piece of plywood and just screw and glue.
Yeah, I think that'll be it. All right, so we're at an hour and 25 minutes. So if people haven't fallen asleep,
we should probably wrap this up.
Yes.
This is for the people sitting in commuter traffic.
Right, or on the way to work
they don't have to.
And home.
That way they don't have to bother with finding a whole nother podcast to listen to. We're your one-stop shop.
Right. There's you can use this twice. Drive to work, listen to the law enforcement part. Drive home from work, listen to the woodworking part. That's how it works. All right. So we were going to do woodworking profiles, right, for IG.
I do want to shout out one, and I'll do it real quick. So David Miller from dmiller.designs. He has been so helpful when I was looking into getting a laser. Like, he answered all of my stupid questions about cutting dimensions, like how he has his setup. So he is my shout out, and I will I have a whole list of people that have helped me out.
Cool. Well, we will get to
just stupid
them.
questions that I will get to each week.
Yeah, because we want to mention this is an IG driven podcast. That's how we met. So I want to keep it in the IG family. So my woodworking IG profile shout out goes to my buddy Hung at Wiley Woodworks. I already mentioned him earlier, but he's truly one of my good friends, not only on IG, but personally. He's a good friend. He's an amazing woodworker, amazing work with hand tools. He's been redoing a lot of hand planes and refurbishing them. So if you guys get a chance, check out Hung's page at Wiley Woodworks, and also check out David Miller. These are people that are inspiring to us as we learn this craft. This is a craft we're going to continue to learn as we move along and start moving into more complicated builds and stuff. So those are two of the people that you can look forward to getting answers from. All right, so this is the Falling Officers Memorial segment, and weekly we will be mentioning the officers who lost their lives in the previous week. And luckily, as of today, I haven't heard anything new today, but I have a short list for today, which is a good thing. And Brandon, you have the list with you as well, right?
Yeah, I have it here.
Okay. Last week I read them. Would you like to read them this week?
Yeah, I'll take care of this one.
All right, cool.
All right, so April 11th, 2021, Palm Beach County Sheriff Deputy Carlos Antonio Hernandez. He was a 19-year veteran, 47 years old. He passed away of COVID complications that he contracted in the line of duty. April 12th, 2021, United States Department of Homeland Security Border Patrol agent Christopher Shane Simpkins. He was a 24-year veteran, as well as a member of Alabama's National Guard. He died of complications from COVID-19 that he contracted while on duty. And April 17th, 2021, Lexington, North Carolina retired police officer David Pardee. He was 54 years old. He died after complications from being shot in the line of duty in 1992, investigating a suspicious person. He was shot by a juvenile, leaving him paralyzed below the chest, and he had been on the job for 2.5 years.
Man, 2.5 years. It's young, 54. All these guys.
Yeah.
All these guys are young. 47. COVID. See, a lot of people don't take COVID seriously, and we are exposed to it. We don't, obviously, like you were telling me earlier in our pre-show, we don't know.
4 confirmed.
4 confirmed times you've been exposed to COVID. Tell the people what you do when you know that you've been exposed.
So when this first happened, so my mom has some respiratory issues. My father-in-law, he's got some health concerns. So my wife and I both have people very close to us. I'm parents that if they get this, it could be the end of them. So we put some plans in place that but when I was exposed, that we would kind of be able to mitigate it a little bit without me having to completely quarantine from my family for 2 weeks. So typically the way it goes is I find out that I've had an exposure. I call her up on my way home. I say, hey, guess who got exposed again? She'll laugh and go, God damn it. Then she'll grab some fresh clothes for me, set them out in the garage. I get home, close it down, say, hey, just landed. Everybody out of the house. Everybody goes into the backyard. I strip down butt naked, change into the fresh clothes.
You're not naked running through the house?
No. Not since we've had kids. So nasty clothes go in the washing machine. I start the load. It goes by itself. Put on the fresh clothes. Every baby gate doorway is open straight up to our shower. I jump in the shower, deep clean myself, and then everyone can come back in after I'm done or after I get upstairs, so that we can minimize the exposure. So
wow, it is a serious thing.
Yeah, so it is what it is.
A good way to get it. Yeah, our job is a good way to get it,
Yeah.
But that's a good way not to spread it, is what I meant to say. All right, so congratulations on keeping your family safe in that manner. We did not get a chance to do a Hero of the Week. It's been an hour and a half. You're my Hero of the Week. I'm nominating you. You've won the award. Last week or this past week, Brandon helped a Marine who was thinking of suicide. So if you want to touch on that really quick, Brandon, or save it to the next week, that's fine. But I didn't.
Yeah, I'll talk about it real quick.
Okay, good.
So if you haven't put it together yet, I'm also a military veteran. I did 6 years in the United States Air Force, and one thing that is near and dear to my heart is combating veteran suicide. 22 veterans a day, on average, kill themselves. That's unacceptable. Okay? So, when it's a veteran in crisis, that's a call that I will go to. I don't care where it is in the city. I'll go if they're not getting anywhere. So, thankfully, this Marine reached out to Crisis Line, who then called us. We were able to get in touch with her, thankfully, before anything happened. In 2019, she was a victim of a sexual assault, which was something else that I dealt with in the military, being one of the advocates for sexual assault victims. So she was kind of a double whammy for me. And thankfully we were able to get her up to not just the county resource that's available. That's typically if we put somebody on a mental health hold, we were able to get her up to the VA and get her some help there. They have a little bit better health or mental health care at the VA than they do at the county level. So we got her transported up there by ambulance. Thankfully, most of the ambulance workers, if I kind of talk to them and be like, hey, this is active duty or this is a veteran, like we need to get them there, they'll usually work with me on it. And that this is actually the first time I've ever handed out my business card to somebody and circled my email address and even put my department cell phone number on there and made myself available to them. So very happy that we were able to get that result. And if you know somebody that is a veteran, you'd have no idea how much or how impactful just even a text message saying, hey, thinking about you, how you doing? Even if it's been years, that text message could literally save a life.
Well, thank you, man. It's a fantastic story, and I'm so glad that you were there for her, because who knows what would have happened if you didn't take that call. Not everybody can deal with those kind of calls, let's face it. We got guys that can't do that part of the job, and to have the background that you do is amazing. In closing, thanks again, Brandon. I greatly appreciate you, for one, serving our country, and I'm honored to have you as a co-host on this show, and thank you for saving someone's life this week. It's a fantastic feeling, and you've made a difference, and that's why you do this job, right?
Yeah, and that was immediately after the call, as I sent out the message to this group chat that we have with the woodworkers / law enforcement officers. It's one of those things of, we need to celebrate the small victories that we do have.
Definitely. And we all appreciate you and being in our group. So thanks. That will wrap up episode 2. Hope you stayed with us. And before we go, I want to mention a few things. Nelson DeVal of CWO Workshop on Instagram, he is going to be heading up our Instagram and Facebook page for the podcast. There will be a Handcuffs and Sawdust Instagram page and Facebook page that you will be able to leave questions and remarks about the show. In the meantime, if you want to leave a remark or a question, feel free to send an email to the Handcuffs and Podcasts email account. I'm drawing a blank right here, Brandon. I'm so tired.
It's Handcuffs and Sawdust Podcast at Gmail.
I don't know. I zoned out for a minute, man. Gmail.com.
I'm going on like 2 hours of sleep.
I can edit all this.
This is deteriorating rapidly.
Yeah. And
no, leave it in there. This is great. This is what people want.
Right.
They want to see two suffering insomniacs ramble for 10 minutes.
So you got the email now. Thanks to Nelson, who's going to be doing our those 2 pages. And then I wanted to thank Don Can, the dysfunctional woodworker. Don is one of my closest friends on Instagram and in my life, actually. We talk quite a bit. Don spent his own time. I gave him an idea of what I wanted for the logo. He did it. He's actually updating it now because Apple is very picky and they need specifics before they can actually put your podcast on the air. So he's finishing up it might even be a new tweaked logo, but I wanted to thank Don for doing that. And that's it, man. We're going to have some guests coming up that I'm excited about that I can't share with you right now.
Big guests.
Big guests. So keep your questions coming, and we will pick out a question of the week that will get on the air next week. And with that, I can say thank you, Brandon.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. All you law enforcement guys out there and gals, you are cared for.
Stay safe. We're out.